welcome. Oh, Nate's showing off again. Damn it, Nate. Can't take this guy anywhere. Welcome to The Escape. My name is Nick, and I'm joined by Nate and Brandon. Brandon, welcome. Your first time on the show. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm good. I'm great. I'm exhausted, but I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. So
the tables have turned. You're usually the one leading the charge, and now we get to ask you questions today.
I know, and that's what made me so excited to do the interview today, because I was like, you know what? I don't need to make myself the show host. You know, the preparation and the mentalness, and you guys get it. Like, you have to be on it.
you
got
gotta
to
be in
catch
like
what I'm
anchor
saying.
mode, yeah.
Yep. You gotta run the show and make sure I'm a controlled guest, but I get to just be the guest and do what I want. So I'm excited.
So you're like, so if I go off the handle, it's totally cool. So
Yeah.
All right, Brandon, you are I did a little bit of prep for you. So you are editor in chief at Apollo City Comics, and tell me a little bit about what Comics Wellspring is.
Okay, so Comics Wellspring is a comic book printing company, and they specialize specifically in comic books. And I'm lucky enough to have been chosen. I've known them for a little bit, had some great talks, and I run their podcast called Inspired Ink.
Fantastic. So, and then I mentioned before, Apollo City Comics started in 2023. You guys are affiliated with lesser known comics. How did that get started for you?
So actually, yeah, so check this out. So the way, even backtracking into CWS, it kind of leads into that. Apollo City Comics was once just a podcast. I would do basically the show that incorporated me just trying to focus on studying comics past being in college. I just wanted to focus on the craft and also have fun with it. And I had some friends that were starting up a show and, something separate and whatnot. And I was like, what if I just try to do my own comic book thing? Just keep me doing this. And that show, we would just cover all my favorite books and, Flex Metallo. And there's still episodes up on YouTube with all of our content and whatnot. But that started in 2018. And that podcast started because I used to write for comic book websites like Comics First, an old website that doesn't exist anymore. And I would do comic book reviews and everything. So that kind of led me into doing the podcast. The podcast eventually turned into, we got tired. It was COVID was going on. We had to widen our range, and it was a perfect time where we were using Zoom more than ever. And so we kind of started bringing guests on, and I met this dude, Mark Bernal, and he had just started this comic book publishing company, Lesser Known Comics. And Lesser Known has gone through a lot of transformations over the years since, 2021, 22, when we started talking. But Mark kind of helped guide me into making the punk anthology, which was my first book, and led me into making comics. But because of the podcast, because of my relationship with Lesser Known Comics, that's what also led me to Comics Wellspring and got me in my foot in the door to make Inspired Ink as well.
So you're saying Mark was grooming you?
Yes.
I'm joking.
I'm going to go on record. I'm going to get, this is the clip everyone needs to get right now. Mark Bernal was grooming me when I was just like, I was trying to get into comics.
That's so cool to hear, because I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of getting ingrained with Lesser Known myself, and I don't know everybody's background. So it's really cool to hear where your stuff is coming from, because it's like you guys are kind of, Apollo's a little bit on a charge right now, from what I know. I mean, you guys are doing a couple anthologies, couple like Hyperforce, Adam Matthew Smith, Last Day, Hyperforce. Go check it out.
Yeah, last like 4 hours or something. It's still time to back right now. It's kind of wild. Yeah.
I got mine today, so.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, and that, the publication stuff, that kind of came by accident too. I had this comic called Teenage Babylon. I wish I had like a promo or a mini comic to show you. But I had this comic book idea, the cosmic punk rock love story, and Mark knew I was trying to make it. And he was like, well, you're starting off with your first book, like you want to build a base, and Apollo has a base, but to build a Kickstarter base, why don't you try to, do this anthology and make it a theme related to your book, make it a punk rock theme, and, run from there, see how the anthology does. It builds a base. You get a lot of people pledging towards it. So when you do your book, people will already know about Teenage Babylon. It's been promoted through the anthology, and you've built a fan base around it. You're not starting from scratch on your very first book. So I made, actually, luckily enough, I have it right here, the punk anthology, and Out Come the Comics, 60-page, just punk rock filled, bunch of stories. And this is the first book. This is what spawned it on. And there's a Teenage Babylon promo right there. What's great about this cover that Nicholas Freshen did, this great Canadian artist that illustrated my story in this as well. Every like little panel, all these books in here on the cover, those are stories inside of the anthology.
Oh, that's cool.
So how cool is that, right? Yeah, he incorporated everyone's story and kind of put it on the cover, and it's a homage to Rancid's and Out Come the Wolves. So it was just a fun punk rock book to put together. And then we actually got real lucky because when I had just met Comics Wellspring, and we'd been in the talks about the show, and right as the book came out, they sent me to San Diego Comic-Con to do a panel. And they also gave me the very first Comics Wellspring sponsored anthology too. Like, this is their first sponsored book. They gave me a foil cover, and they helped put this together as a San Diego variant. And you can see the foil on the jacket. It's super cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, Love US, we were building a relationship. They did this for me, and I started doing the podcast for them, and that's been phenomenal as well. It's a lot. It's like a lot that happened in like a year. It's really it's all stacked together in timelines too.
I actually wrote a list of questions for you.
They're typed out. I look like a hack. Mine are handwritten. Jeez, Nate.
Mother's maiden name, the street you lived on when you were a kid, your first dog's name. No, what is like the most challenging thing for you with Apollo? I mean, I know you a little bit. I know you've got a lot going on, but like Apollo as its own thing, like what's the most challenging aspect to you?
I think trying to always efficiently maintain relationships, because the thing about Apollo is, it went from podcast to publisher because the punk anthology did real well. I met this kid, Alex Batts, and we just became friends. It was like a great first date. Like, we talked over Zoom because he had this idea for CyberSync, and that book is coming out soon. In fact, here's a poster. Man, I am prepared. Whatever was in the stack next to me on this desk, I put together.
Heck yeah, man.
This is a CyberSync poster that's going in every order that people backed. We decided to become a publishing imprint, and I was like, that's cool. Like, we had this great vision to be the Vertigo young animal to lesser known to DC, and we wanted to make really great, creative punk rock, passionate books that just really encapsulated. And that's why we started with the 3 anthologies. It's punk rock, it's sci-fi, CyberSync is sci-fi and whatnot, and then we have Shadow anthology, which is a very emotionally driven anthology, and it kind of put everything together. But as everything is happening, you're growing all these connections, and you're growing all these people, and people that are part of your community that you want to help support and you want to be a part of and you want to like do things with and everything. But like maintaining those relationships and keeping up with your inbox, and also balancing like a really a day job that just wears me out, and then a great relationship, and then like your friends and like family, all that stuff that goes on the side, life. That's hard. That's the hardest part, is just trying to keep on top of it all and be okay and still pursue your passion efficiently, to support everyone that's helped support you, because I wouldn't be here without everyone that's helped me on my journey. And I love maintaining those relationships and giving my love. But sometimes like taking care of yourself, I guess that's the answer. Taking care of yourself so you could maintain these relationships is probably the most difficult part.
Yeah, absolutely. I know when Nate was on show with you, one of the things that you guys were focused on was, comics for mental health. And I think that's a huge thing. Yeah. Let's see here. We got people watching. Adam Matthew Smith says it is a huge juggling act. It has to be. Like, life is a huge juggling act, but also when you're trying to be creative. But it's when mental health. We one of the things that we try and focus on someone on the show. We don't do a great job, but kind of when the holidays is where we kind of focus on a little bit more, because that's when it really seems like the pressure really ramps up. But I think last time when Nate was on, it's just, I think as guys, we just kind of put so much of the mental health side of stuff, to the side to just, you get task focus, work, family, blah, 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 blah. And you just keep plowing away. And next thing you know, you're mentally a wreck. and it's hard. But also I think, especially as guys have a hard time going, I need help. I think that's one of the hardest things that guys, whatever you want to say, the machismo of guys, or just the whole, like, I don't need help, whatever. It's like, I'll be fine. I'll just push it down. And then it's bound to come back at some point. So.
Oh, 100%, dude. And that's the whole thing, is like, I think that's why I've always been so emotionally driven about like projects and stuff, is that like I love growing up with like punk rock, like Social Distortion was one of my favorite bands, and hearing as a kid Mike Ness saying, even tough guys cry, and I was like, damn, if Mike Ness from Social D is saying that, I guess it's pretty fucking cool. But it's if you don't have that type of yeah, dude, like if you don't have that type of influence, or like something that sparks, yes, yes, exactly, dude, that's amazing. The strongest man here cried over 1,000 times. Like, that's a great comic book character. I love that. But yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to like even face that, even when you have that mindset sometimes, and ask for help. And there was like a period where I was just like, my girlfriend was getting frustrated for a while, because she was like, you realize every day this month that we've hung out, you've been working on something as we're hanging out. And I'm just like, you try to explain and back it all up, and it's like, oh, because of this. And it's like, no, put your stuff aside for a minute. Like, give the love back that people gave you. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, I've had so much support from everyone, and I just can't believe it. It blows my mind every day where I've like wound up because of that support. And especially doing Inspired Inc., that has been just a wild experience, and the reception to that is just insane. Like, going to a convention and people like saying hi to me, that it trips you out when people say I've seen your show and whatnot, and you're just like, I don't know you. And it's never happened for like Apollo or any of my other projects. So it's just like one of those moments where you're like, oh dang, like there's cool stuff happening, but it's a lot of hard work. It's real tedious, and it gets difficult, but it's fun. I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't.
Do you do all the editing and everything for it? I mean,
no, actually, Alex Batts, he does the editing for all of that. Really cool like setup that we have is that me and James, who works at Comics Wellspring, we will kind of build a list of people we're going to contact, and he does a lot of the design stuff along with Evan McGuire, who's actually designed our logo and everything. We work with them to like we have a whole team. It's really great. We work on them on scheduling guests, making our dream list, stuff like that. And then Alex does all the video and audio editing, and a lot of our short clips and everything too. And we have a lot of stuff planned in the next couple months for that show, that it's going to really just have an outpour of just like cool content. And we do hour-long conversations. I try to make them 30 minutes. Never turns out that way.
Never goes that way ever.
Yeah, you get too invested and it just becomes a blast. And it takes a few minutes to get comfortable with the guest too. You know what I mean? Like feeling the vibe, reading the room, understanding the lingo and language. So it's we work through that and everything. But yeah, Alex does the editing. I guess that's the short answer for that.
Who's top 3 dream on the dream list? Who do you want to interview for Inspiring?
Shelly Bond is like she's probably my number one, and I have a cool connection with Shelly Bond, and I'm going to try to get her on the show very soon. But she would be super ideal, because I looked up to her so much as she was an editor on Vertigo, for those who don't know, and she runs a class called Filth and Grammar. And when I heard about Filth and Grammar, her running that class 2 years ago, I signed up for it, and that's how I met Nicholas, who did the cover for the Punk Anthology and did my first comic ever, my first little 4-page short. Like, he did that. So if it wasn't for Shelly, And me being so inspired by her book, Filth and Grammar, Apollo probably wouldn't exist, and a lot of stuff that's happened wouldn't exist. So I feel like I owe her a lot. And I feel I've met her before, and we've had a great conversation about all of that, which was really rewarding. But I'd love to pick her brain. Another one was Thomas Healy. We actually just had him in January. He was a very top guest that I wanted to get on, and he's the editor for Spawn. And Spawn is a book I've always loved, and just the editorial process behind it was real interesting. I guess I would love to get Jim Rugg on. I know there's a lot of stuff going on with the kayfabe people, so I don't think that'll happen in a bit. But like that whole controversy, if people don't know about it, they can look it up. But it's just he's just a really smart dude that knows stuff. So him and Tom Sicoli would be great to talk to at that point.
Okay. Working with creators for Comics Wellspring, what are some of the things that kind of maybe surprises creators that you're helping that maybe they haven't thought of? Is there anything that kind of pops up, or like they're coming to you for help and you're like, hey, do you have X, Y, and Z ready? And they're like, I've got A, B, and C. Or is there anything like that where certain creators maybe haven't thought of by the time they get to you, and you're like, hey guys, like you kind of really got to focus on these type of things?
Oh yeah, like you mean with like the publishing of stuff and everything? Yep. Yeah. So I think it comes down a lot of the times to man, it's a couple things, and I'm learning all the time too, and that's a big process of it. I think a lot of those issues pop up because I've only done so many books. We've done the 3 anthologies, and Hyperforce is our first. Like, it was a big risk doing Hyperforce. Hyperforce was our first creator-owned book, and when you're working with I guess the short answer, and I'll explain it, is that people come with questions.
We got time, man. Don't worry.
And people come with questions and expectations, and I've only done so much, and so I only know so much, and so a lot of times it's a risk. And Hyperforce was our biggest risk because anthologies, you're working with a team of 20 to 30 people, so you have a team essentially of 40 people almost promoting this book with you, ensuring some success. And when I'm now turning around and doing a creator-owned book, and this one singular creator, Adam Matthew Smith, is like pouring his heart out, promoting it, and we're doing our part as we do everything else, it's really difficult. And that's where a lot of lessons start coming into play. And I'm so happy it's been as successful as it's been, because it's hitting great numbers right now. I'm really proud of it. But it's, I guess, trying to find answers to problems you haven't encountered yet, and trying to put yourself into that situation, and guesstimating and analyzing someone else's outcome, and just trying to configure it to your own. That's a lot of what this job is just trying to navigate waters you don't know, and you're going by experiences, and you have a team to ask questions for, but results are different for everybody, but then just always having the confidence to do your best at that point, and be like, I guess we're gonna do it. Let's just jump ship, and you just head out there. So when people come to me with questions and whatnot, I just try my best and give very honest, transparent advice. But sometimes expectations are really high for Apollo for some reason. I guess we have really cool looking branding because of Max Flowers doing all of our art. But looks like we know what we're doing,
My thing for us is fuck around and find out. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's just
dude, yeah,
check it out and see what happens.
I got this fork. Let's see if I jam it in the outlet. See what happens. Oh, there you go.
Results. I know the result now.
There's data. We've got some data. Fantastic.
That's what happens sometimes too. You do something, you make a decision, and then you kind of look at it 3 weeks later, and you're like, oh, I see the problem with this. This is apparent. We're prepping for our next Kickstarter to go live on April 16th. And I'm talking to the creators, and we're analyzing, our old Kickstarters and trying to learn lessons from them. And I've learned so much from Hyperforce already. And just so many things that we're about to implement in the future that we're going to change up, that doesn't necessarily include Kickstarter anymore. There's a lot of cool stuff that we have on the horizons that we're learning lessons from all the time. And the thing about that, and the thing about learning lessons, is that we did a Kickstarter in October last year. That was CyberSync. And then we did a Kickstarter in January again for the Shadow Anthology. But there was like, there was a lot of issues with printing and figuring out how to format the book and a lot of things. So we didn't really learn any lessons from the second Kickstarter to like pick up on the third Kickstarter. It was all just like one long stretch, and we just felt like we did everything right with the CyberSync. So we just carried the same formula over to Shadow Anthology when there was a lot of lessons that like needed to be filled, and we didn't discover that until post. So it's weird how you have to kind of like roll with the punches and just kind of figure it out as you go and just try your best at anything.
Or as Nate says, FAFO, and just see what
Have
Yeah.
I not cussed?
Honestly,
We put a beep
Yeah.
over my mouth.
Yes,
Although,
yes, we're a
there's this one too, right?
family friendly show. Yeah, thanks, Nate.
There you go. Hey, I gotta I don't know if this fits along there, but I mean it's like messing around and finding out. So I'm not an economist. I don't know a lot about the economy, but the cost of living is going up. And this is one thing we're running into, and I wanted to hear what you think, is the cost of comics. Nobody wants to pay more for comics. And what do you think about, like, I don't know, is that a good question? I feel like it's silly now that I said it, but like the artists need to get paid, the printers need to get paid, and the margins get smaller, for a publisher. And it's not like I don't know about you, but I'm not in it to make millions of dollars. But it, like, in the spirit of like keeping things going on, we just got a 22% hike in one of our pest control service for our house. That's a pretty big hike. If you added $2 onto a comic, like, does that, I don't know, just putting it out there, what do you think?
It's pricing. The pricing of books is real interesting. And considering what everyone complains about with like Marvel and DC, where it's like, Marvel and DC books are $2.99, $3.99 now, and that's just ridiculous. But then we all sell our indie books at $5 starting, but when you take into consideration everything, it kind of backtracks a lot to like, yeah, you have to like think about what we're charging for the artist, for the creator, for the time, for the printing, for this and for that. So we have a lot more to back up, like, than like, DC and like, larger publishers might. But when it comes to like pricing your book as like things go up, I always feel like just being transparent with the audience on some stuff too is really good. We try to do that with our anthologies. We show our spreadsheets. We actually just put them together so that like creators know what we're paying for, and so that they understand the process. But doing that 300% markup rate, I feel, is just like the standard business practice. If it costs X amount, you got to do so much more to like make something off of it. And none of us are really making money off of comics. Like, I haven't made any money off of any Kickstarter at all. I've maybe scored, I think, an Outcome the Comics, I had enough to pay for the pizzas while I did fulfillment for that weekend, 4 days. And stuff like that's all you get. I think CyberSync, we were negative in CyberSync actually, which is probably just me announcing this out loud that nobody knows but me and Alex. And then like the Shadow Anthology, like we just barely hit the brim, and we're trying to figure out where we could save the last couple bucks to like send out to royalties and whatnot, because we always try to like whatever comes out, we want to give to creators. And a big part of this is that we all crowdfund, and we all use Kickstarter. Kickstarter takes out 10% of your fees. So when I made, $5,300 on the Punk Anthology, I only got $4,700 back, like, from Kickstarter. I lost, $500 right there. Is gone, just shipped away, $600 practically. And so that's a big chunk of money when you're dealing with like tedious stuff like this. So I think what needs to essentially happen is, creators need to find a better way to sell their books, to like fund their books, looking into avenues that like we're trying to develop in the background to make it easier and more efficient for creators, giving them a store that's not like just stealing their stuff. We all work so hard for these Kickstarters, and none of us truly get anything out of it besides printing our book and getting it, brought to life, which is great. That's the goal. I love that. That's the whole point, But if I had enough to at least like get a meal out of out of everything, that would be pretty awesome too. But when it comes to crowdfunding, especially, that's like the beginning of stuff. It's always good to remember that your book is going to sell over time, but it's really hard to figure out how to do that and how to find that avenue. And I'm not quite there yet, because to me, it feels like all of us are just like in stadium seats, swinging our book in our hands while the audience, the single person audience, is on the center stage, and we're trying to have them sell our book. Buy our book. But I think, when it comes to pricing, you just got to be fair about it. You got to be, what works best for the book. And sometimes some books you can give away for $1 or $2 or for free, and, take the jab on the cut, But, when it comes down to our main books, I mean, dude, the Punk Anthology is 60 pages and it's gorgeous. It's awesome. But it's a $15 book, $15 anthology. We're selling Cybersync, and we're selling the Shadow Anthology, which are 80 to 100 and something pages for $25 each. So they're packed. But it's like, it is a pricey book that is bigger than any modern, Image and Dark Horse or DC, Marvel. None of those books are that expensive for what you're getting. But I think it comes down to, giving what it's worth for the creator and the heart that was put into it as well. Like $15 for this, and I know all the effort that was put into it. I mean, fair, you know what I mean? It helps me out, helps you out. Like, we're our own storefront and paying our own utilities. And I think once people recognize that more, that we're all just our own small business, they'll accept those prices a bit better.
Yeah, and it's, you say, comparing to, the big two, their prices are jumping up as well. You can, for, because I know Thinking Critically does a really good job as far as, what's coming out and what the price is going to be. You're talking for a #1 comic book. You might be paying $10 for a comic, and probably 30% of it's going to be ads. And I think that's one of the things where, creators, indie creators have to stop and say, like you said, we're giving you 60 pages. There's no, there might be minimal ads, but all that is literally just to help get us here. It's not, pimping anything else. And, so, and I think especially creators, or not creators, but fans who go to the cons, who actually go take a trip down Artist Alley and the Creator Alleys and say, oh, because I think, every kid who's listened to a band and has thought about, starting a band or writing music, and they sit down and play it and they're like, holy crap, this is way harder. And I think everybody who's, read a comic will be like, oh, I can draw and write this. And they go, wow, this is incredibly difficult. This is way harder than I thought it was. And then, by the time, most of them give up, but hopefully what they do is they go to the cons and they actually go, oh, look, these guys, push through, the crap tiers where they, the oh craps, all the oh craps that, that stop most people, but all the creators who push through all that and kept going to get their book printed and into someone's hands and go, yeah, I can definitely pay the $10 to $15 for it.
Yeah, dude, that's a great point. I mean, as a musician growing up, I would spend hours at my bass. I would start right after school, and then I'd be done at 2 a.m. You know what I mean? Just figuring it out and learning through it. I would, and I mean, I majored in music for years, and I know the strain behind it. And I think that's what helped me become a writer, was because I knew the discipline behind it. And I think that's what's helping me start drawing and be consistent with drawing too. Because I know, as writing and as a musician, the hours that would go into it, and not a lot of people get it, and not a lot of people understand it. But the ones that do, they get it. They understand the how hard it is. And I admire everybody who's put together a zine or put together, a book or, a piece for an anthology, all of it, because it's so hard. It's so difficult. And that's why I try so hard to learn, art and everything now, especially being a comic creator, and especially doing what I do with Inspired Ink. This mindset I've had really put me into this great position to talk to creators and artists, because now I'm learning more from them, and I'm understanding and having better conversations with them, because I kind of get it. to an extent. And as I grow my knowledge with them, it's, making these conversations more enriched and everything too. But that's the thing. You have to have an admiration for it, and you have to be able to understand it. And those, I feel like, really the people who love indie comics and admire indie comics are like the people who really like admire comics, and not just like these bigger publishers. Like if you really like adore the art form, what we're doing is like the most pure form of it that you could probably get your hands on.
Yeah, you're probably not going to get the one who saw the latest Marvel movie and says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to pay for that." No, like I always kind of equate like the gold standard of indie comics is Ninja Turtles. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, where literally, the reason they were called Mirage Comics, or publishing, is just because they were in their living room, getting it done. And yeah, you're probably not getting, like I said, hey, what superhero movies are popular. You're probably not going to get those ones, but the ones who actually might get introduced to comics and say, "Oh, I went home and drew this, and it's kind of crappy, but I did it, but now I see, you're just an artist on, showing up to the con, and you did it, and you made your own book, and like, yeah, I really." Just the simple fact of your art is, it's better, but it's not, big two stuff. It's trying to get to the, hey, you can, the kid who, just started, sat down and drew what they liked or drew from the movies. And then you inspire the kids who do your own thing, create your own stuff. And that's kind of where, because I used to, I was pretty good at drawing, and my son would come up to me. He's like, "Hey, can you teach me how to draw like this?" I said, "No, I'm not going to. I don't want you to draw like me. I want you to draw like you." And that's the biggest thing for, trying to find your own style, but also trying to get it to the masses at the same time.
That's what I like. Yeah, what said about art form though, because it's, I mean, what commercial art versus like fine art. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but like Max Flowers was on Inspired Inc. and Max, he's like a different breed. His knowledge of paper and this and that is just really cool. But it is like seeing it as more of, I don't know, in my opinion, as an art form. I would love to see some of these like big two artists branch out and just do some wild stuff, like Peach Momoko, have her do, a punk rock cover. David Nakayama do a killer Chihuahua. Like, it just, people are so, it's like, you can draw Venom 1,000 times and people will probably buy it. And I mean, I get it. You're making money and you're living off of that, but like something different, like go out and like forge a new path. I don't know. It almost feel like it loses. I don't know. Is that fair to say? Like it loses something if you're just kind of going down the beaten road, because like an art form should innovate and innovate, explore. That's, I don't know. Sorry. There's my
that's like one of the hardest things to do as a creator too, is I'm noticing as well, is like coming up with your own designs and not mocking up a design. Like when I was first starting to learn how to draw, all I was doing was looking at stuff and just like I would get like whatever panel and just like whatever my favorite splash image or cover, I would try to recreate that. And it's like you kind of get that instilled, so you just learn how to do that and follow those lines. But it's like when you're trying to create like new and original things, it's, for some reason, I don't know, there's a miss in mainstream comics, I feel, a lot of the times with like how that comes out. And I think it's because they don't have the practice of doing it on their own independently first. A lot of these artists I've seen, like, from their track record, it doesn't, their only goal was to get to Marvel and DC almost. And so they go for the house style, and that's where it gets stuck. But like, of course they have, I mean, Jorge Jimenez is fucking astonishing, and like he has his own like very clear style. A lot of these creators have their clear style, but it comes down to like their creative character intuition and how they create stuff. Like Kirby's like a great example. Dude, Kirby came up with all of that. That was uniqueness in every sense of the form. That was him creating new beasts and characters and universes and whatnot. And a lot of the times that is just kind of missing at a certain extent for some of these larger, aspects. And there should be more variety. But the money's not in it. Dude, that's why Alex Ross just does covers now. He doesn't do interiors because there's no money. And he's like, it would take me way too long to do that than if I just got paid a bunch for all these covers.
Yeah, Alex Ross, J. Scott Campbell, all those guys.
Yeah, they do it for the money, and I get that, and it's for the they have a passion of it, to a very large extent, but it's a different type of passion, I feel, than what we have, and I guess it just depends on your outcome in life and how you got there and whatnot too to get there.
Yeah, Adam,
what's the Rippaverse?
I'll say we'll get to that in just 1 second, because so when I started collecting in the early 90s, and that's where Image, literally that's when Image started. So I fell in love with Jim Lee, J. Scott Campbell, Brett Booth, all those guys, and then I kind of stepped away because I had to adult for a while. But then you notice all the artists, you can tell there's a definite influence of Jim Lee's style into like everything from like the last 20 years. It's almost like music, where you talk to any musician or guitar player the last, from the 90s to the 80s, they're going to probably say that they're influenced somewhat by like Jimi Hendrix or some of those guys. So you can see like a little bit of that. But like Adam said before here, style will inevitably evolve with time and experience, and hopefully your style will come out eventually, but hopefully you stick around long enough to where you can have your own style. So,
and that's the hard part too, like developing a style in any art form. Like I feel like that's why I kind of stopped with music. I couldn't find a way to like express myself or find a way to do it. In writing, I certainly did, and I felt very comfortable writing, and I found I'm finding my own style now that I'm doing these series with these creators, because I have like 4 series in the works with a bunch of people. And then with art, the more I talk to people, the more comfortable I'm getting with what's coming out of my hand, and that's the thing with style, especially as an artist. And I guess, it applies to different part of you, and what you're doing, on what art form you're doing. But like when you're drawing, like what comes out of your hand, that's going to be your style for that bit, and you can improve upon it, and you can add aspects, and you could mock, and you could study people and recreate, but it's going to come out a little bit different because that's you. And the same thing with your writing, that's going to be your mindset, that's your thoughts and opinions, shaped and formed that way. Like accept that style, dive into it, experiment a little bit.
And that's such a key thing that you said there, dive into it, because I know, especially when I was trying to be an artist when I was younger, like I just ran into so many roadblocks, but they're roadblocks created by me, because immediately, it's not good enough. This is trash. It's not as good as Jim Lee, or it's not good as this other guy I personally know. Because like when I was in high school, like, I can draw pretty well, but like there's always someone, there's levels, right? There's like, well, I'm not as good as this guy. I'm not as good as this guy. And that's kind of where like, I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to be a comic book artist, because I can draw, but I just can't draw nearly fast enough to put out, a monthly comic or anything like that. But yeah, that's my biggest thing for any young creator, or even if you're an older creator like myself, because I'm trying to get into painting. And it's like, just be okay with, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be great, but just keep working, keep working at it.
Yeah. Keep sharpening the sword.
Yep. So from Max Flowers, comics can only reach more people when we tell new stories that truly matter. The ability for anyone to, let me get that out of the way. The ability for anyone to do that now was what make comics so special, which I think that's an excellent point, because I think especially when you're young creators that, I grew up with the X-Men, be like, what cool powers can I come up with this? Be like, how about you not do mutants? How about you do something crazy like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, how about, stuff like that. So I think that's you don't have to all go one way. It's okay to go, different ways. And that is one of the beauties of comics, because I think that's one of the things that I think manga does really well is, yeah, they've got superhero stuff, but also if you're a fisherman and you want to go read a manga about fishing, they got that too. And that's okay.
Dude, I mean, that's like, when I was, studying, like, and trying to figure out how to be a writer and whatnot, like I realized that like storytelling is a thing to focus on, and like storytelling and what storytelling is and how to like convey that. And when I make any story, when I make any comic, I really go by this like mindset of like, okay, I have an armature, and that's like the base, that's my North Star, that's like my, what I'm trying to say. Our weaknesses are what make us. Like if that's my armature and I'm writing a comic to that, what I do is like whenever I'm crafting a story, or I'm looking at my characters and I'm lost, or I don't know which direction to go, and to add on to it, it's like, how does this moment lead me to my armature? Like how does this reflect into that? So like crafting stories that truly matter, it's resonating with the aspect that's going to like, or writing about an aspect that's going to resonate with other creators and with other people. I felt like this. I just did this really cool submission to this music anthology, and Max Flowers did the lettering for it, and we had Jeremy. Jeremy did the art, and then we had Bob Little do the coloring, and it was like one of those stories where it's about Robert Johnson, the guitarist, and I was trying to figure out how Jeremy's a brilliant artist, and I love him so much. In fact, maybe I could give a shout out to his Instagram handle real fast so you guys can follow him. But Jeremy is it's literally just his name, Jeremy John Hansen Art. If you look up Jeremy John Hansen, it'll pop up. But he did the storytelling aspect, and he did all of the pages for me, and then I wrote over it. But when I wrote over it, not only are you configuring like to write over the art, but how am I going to convey this to creators? And I was able to talk about like the deal with the devil and related to creators, and the people that read the script were felt like it resonated with them. And when you find that aspect that resonates, and how you could kind of discover that, like storytelling is your avenue, man. You got to study storytelling to figure out how to make strong, positive aspects. Yeah, that's him. Jeremy's fucking beast. We're working on this book called The Broadcast Dialogues. That's going to be the wildest space opera in the universe. I'm so excited.
Is that
that's awesome.
Oh, it's a panel right there. Yeah.
There we go.
And it's great when you work with artists and other creators that know storytelling really well. Max Flowers is awesome because since he does all my letterings, that means he's also like my script editor as well, because he's plugging everything in and he finds where like stuff will make sense or where things need to get altered. And having creators that understand storytelling in specific helps you so much. China Rosemaria, she's another one of my artists. And she's done so much work for Apollo, but she does the same thing. I will give her an idea and we'll Marvel method it. I will just tell her like, I have this idea, this is what it's about, and she's gone and made an entire comic, and I'm just gonna like tell the story over it, but I'm following her beats, and it's because she's a strong storyteller. And it goes back, Jack Kirby, brilliant storyteller. You know what I mean? Talk about like the writing wasn't always the strongest, but visually on page, brilliant. You know what I mean? Just the craziest, like not violence, but like real action going on the page. So that's pinnacle.
Yeah, I've said that about many comics. Like you can have okay art and really good writing, but if you've got crap art and really good writing, like if you can't look at the page and the page doesn't tell the story, it's a fail. It's at least for me, it's because but the polar opposite, if you've got really good art and an okay story, I'm still right there with you because it's visually compelling.
Yeah. And I mean, that goes with like all of it too. I'm realizing more and more like the lettering is so vital, because I didn't realize like how turned off I'd be by both the story and the art with bad lettering. And lettering is that's why Max does all my fucking lettering, because I love him so much and he has such a great style. Yeah, the beast. And I'm so fortunate to have I'm so fortunate for the people I'm creating comics with. Nate, dang it. But he understands everything about it, and it's great working with craft people. And I encourage anyone who's trying to make comics, like when you're not working on your stuff, like study the craft. Like it's good to study other creators. It's good to study your favorites. It's good to study other artists, but the craft itself, go back to school and school yourself on it as often as you can, because it'll just make more and more sense the more you go back and look at things.
Yeah. So from another one from Adam. So what's everyone's take on the Rippaverse? So Eric July is the creator of the Rippaverse, and he's probably the most successful crowd-funded comics today, because I think he's put out 3 or 4 campaigns and they've all gone over $1 million. The big thing is he created his own platform, his own warehouse, his own printing system. Like he built everything, and he's a YouTuber musician and comic fan, and ultimately, got fed up with Big Two and said, I'm going to go make my own stuff. I know he's somewhat, he's like anybody, that he's got his own personal takes, but I think as far as doing everything on his own, like it's a hell of a thing, and every time he puts out a book, I think because I know he did ISOM, I think it's ISOM 1 through 3. I know there's Alpha Core, and then I think his latest book, Yara, just went over 1.3 million. I think I saw today.
Wow.
He's doing something right. Now, what I really, really hope he does he help out other indie creators by letting them use his platform? I really hope so. So we'll see. But I think Eric July, I think he's leading the charge as far as indie creators go.
I mean, that's like the whole issue with like some of those bigger creators too, though. Like they're not doing any. I love talking to Thomas Healy, and if you guys check out that interview with Inspired Inc., like we talk about that in like heavily detail, because they were doing Spawnuary, which gave a bunch of indie creators a chance to make a cover for Spawn, and they chose a handful of people. But not only did they choose a handful of people, they went and messaged other people that were like runners-ups and like be like, we want to talk in the future on new coloring or inking or penciling something, stuff like that. So they're discovering new artists through this platform. Dude, tell me why like there's all these new publishers run by all the people that were already dominating comics, and they're all just starting their own imprints and everything, with all their friends that are all the other people that were dominating comics or leads within the industry, and they're all putting out all this new original work that they want to own. That's cool. Like that's really cool when you're like a fan. And that's really cool when you're a fan. You know what I mean? Like if I was still in the collector fan mindset, sure. But like as a fellow creator, as someone that was inspired by these people, what are they doing for any of us? Like, what are they doing for any upcoming and independent artists, other than being like, I guess, follow my lead, but you're not giving anyone an opportunity. You're still dominating the market. You're not giving any advice or secrets. You're not like helping anyone. What are you doing for the industry, and what are you doing for comics in general? I don't understand that stuff. And I
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like that's why us doing anthologies, we discover so many new creators with every anthology, and it opens up the floodgates to people who've never been published before. They could all be doing that, but none of them are. But I mean, if we could all do it on top of our full-time jobs and everything else we do and whatnot, like I'm sure they could hire someone and have them do it at least, But I don't get that. I don't get why people aren't trying to like advance and grow the industry. It doesn't make sense to me.
I know some people that are.
What? Oh, but I understand 100% what you're saying, because I think you have an older, it's almost a generation, not quite gap, but because I know you've got some older creators like Graham Nolan. He still puts out stuff. I think he puts most of his stuff out on like Indiegogo or some other places, but it seems, I think there's a little bit of hey, just want to do my own thing, don't really want to associate with too much, because I know there's been a lot of, I don't know if you know this or not, there's been some negativity on the internet. in the last few years. Because even like I was just watching a thing with with J. Scott Campbell, because he just put out one of the new covers for Ultimate Spider-Man, and it's just Spider-Man, Mary Jane, and their 2 kids on the cover, and it's like borderline controversial, where it's like, because that's just what some fans want. That they want to see that. Is there a sect that doesn't want to see that? Sure, that's fine, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. But when you've upset artists who are already, not to be rude, creatives tend to be a little sensitive sometimes. So you get people who tend to be a little sensitive sometimes. You hurt their feelings, and they give you the double bird, and they say, I'm done, I'm good, I'm gonna do my own thing.
And like I love that. I just I think like people like Dave Sims, and there's some creators that are at that level where they started independent and they kind of maintain that independence, or even if they did mainstream stuff. Rick Remender, great example. He had to do the mainstream stuff for a while, but then he went back into his own. But he also like brought up a lot of upcoming artists and worked on his books, and they are great creators now. And he's worked hard on Giant Generator, and I feel like that's been the most beneficial one. But then I look at stuff like Distillery, and I forget that one that Jeff Johns is writing now too.
Bad Idea.
There's Bad Idea too, but Ghost Machine is that one that I'm just like, you guys are giving no one an opportunity still. You're not like opening paths, you're not helping anyone. Like, at least Rick was hiring great like upcoming creators to work on this stuff, but Rick's always had that independent mindset, where these other guys, they're doing their own thing, because people weren't buying their superhero books anymore, so they had to do that. It's a little bit different, I feel. I mean, Scott Snyder, I feel, is like maybe a great example of someone who's doing his own thing, and his stuff that he was putting out, that variety, brilliant. I just don't like agree with like the business aspect of like some of the stuff that's involved in there too.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people like to pull up the ladder after they ascend, and it's a shame.
Exactly.
But you do have certain bigger names, like you have Mark Millar coming back and putting out a lot of his Millar stuff, and he said it just like you guys have said before. He's like, I don't make a dime off this, because it all goes towards the artists, and I want to pay those guys what they're worth. That's why you have the Jorge Jimenez's on speed dial, saying, oh yeah, I'll come work with you anytime, because they know they're going to get paid what they're worth. And kind of the same thing with Eric July, where once you get known for, hey, I make money over here, then you're going to get the creators who are going, yeah, I'll come work with you, because I'll get a payday, or at least get a paycheck at least.
Yeah.
Mark Millar even opened submissions to join the Millerverse for a while too. You know what I mean? Like, he was looking for talent to find and whatnot. So I even at least doing that, like trying that once. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they have to make a career out of it, but like open some avenues here. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely
help out. And I think that's why Scott, like, even giving his lessons on his Substack, I think that's brilliant. That's awesome. You're trying to communicate. He's the only one I know of that's trying to like really help and grow that type of stuff, because he's even put out a couple of small anthologies.
Yeah. So it's a shame that you get, like I said, it seems like people want to, well, I'm up here now, and I'm gonna act like I didn't get any help to get up here, right? But from my understanding, there are people behind the scenes, especially at the big two, trying to get some stuff together, especially for some of the creators, to get them, because you had things like on Twitter, Comics Broke Me, like trending last year, where it's just like, and you feel, when you already feel broken as a creative, let me tell you how not being very creative at that, feel like being very creative at that point. So but this is the beautiful thing about what you guys are doing. Like, you don't have to go big too. Like, as you were saying earlier, so many people like, oh, the goal is to get to big two, and then you get there and you're like, it's not as great as I thought it was going to be.
They're putting the in independent comics.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I would love to check out that avenue at some point. I mean, Rick Remender did it great by like doing a couple series, growing a fan base, and that's why everyone stuck around for Deadly Class and Black Science and all that. Like that's I mean, it's a good business move, you know what I mean, if you get to that point, for sure. But it's one of those things. It's just interesting how, you know, indie comics, I love the community about it, and I think that's what's helped us all out, was just like the help and the growth. And, you know, Nate and I have talked about it a lot, where, you know, we're always trying to bounce stuff off each other and help each other out when we can, and, you know, trying to find avenues and open them up for people. And Inspired Inc., that's what it's all about, is just like talking to creators and talking about why it's so hard to do this and what keeps us going, you know. And I love being able to do that and inspire other creators who feel like slumped or at a stopping point, or I'm having this issue too, or I'm also in this mindset, and, you know, relating to somebody else about it, and so that they can continue to push on.
That was one of the best things I saw, was when David came up to Motor City Comic Con. I helped him out, and you had creators, like you had artists coming over. David would be like, I want to work with you, you know, and like, I want to work with you. And it's like a networking thing. And you just saw, it was just so fun to see, like the creative juices are flowing, and people are just running around, be like, oh man, I got ideas for this, and I got ideas for that, and I got this idea. I need you to write the script, because I read this that you did, and I think you do a great job on this. And I was just like, that was so cool. You know?
I think if the airlines would just give us all free plane tickets and we could just go to Comic-Cons across the country, that would be the best.
There you go.
Yeah, free air travel. Free air travel would be pretty nice.
Network a little bit.
Airline endorsements. That's our next goal as indie creators. We're just jumping to the top.
Or the CWS jet.
Yes. No, we'll get Taylor Swifted, and then we'll get shut down, and won't be indie and punk rock anymore.
Yes. I got a question for you. I don't know how much more time we've got left, but I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to say non-LKC, because I don't want anybody getting mad about favorites, but what's your favorite thing that you've read in the last year or so, or favorite thing you read last year that was a non-LKC title, and why?
Oh, dude, man, like out of indie books, or out of just like anything I read?
Whatever you enjoyed. I mean, yeah, just
man, gosh, you know what? Let me look at my Goodreads so I could give you. I do track all my readings.
He's got a list.
Yeah, I am an avid Goodreaders, and so I always keep a reading goal. So I do read a whole lot, or listen to a lot of audiobooks. But okay, real fast, I will recommend, out of the stuff I've read this year, for sure, what has been my Swamp Thing Green Hell. That was a great book. I am a big
Green
Swamp
Hell
Thing
was
fan.
so good.
So good.
That was so, and that was that the track for that was so weird, because what was it, like a year plus between issues 1 and 2, and then they dumped the rest, like it seemed like in the next month. And that flew under the radar, because I didn't hear anybody talking about that. Yep. And I just read that. I'm like, am I dumb, or is this just great? And it's just like, and no one talked about it, because I think of just the timeline for when it came out. But I was like, that was so good.
Yeah, dude, it blew me away. Another great book I think you guys may enjoy is Old Souls by Brian McDonald. He's a writer. He's done a lot of great writings. He did a short film called I think it was, I forgot the name of it. I don't know if it was called like Blackface, or like Clownface, or something like that. Something along those lines. But Brian McDonald wrote it, Old Souls. He also runs the podcast You Are a Storyteller. Highly recommend. Let me see here. God, I've read so much in the last year, dude. I've been reading Invincible like crazy too. I'm on the third compendium right now, and honestly, Invincible really takes off at that point as well.
I've been going through old Turtle stuff, and the Turtles still hold up. Like, I don't care. It's great.
Oh, nice. I never grew up as like a big Turtles fan. It's crazy. So many people I know, huge Turtle. It never like latched on to me at that point too.
Well, I'm not sure how old you are. So I'm 42. Like, I consider myself pretty lucky. I grew up right when like He-Man, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, and then Turtles came out. And then I think like I kind of aged out as Turtles as I got to a teenager. And then my buddy Adam, who's usually does a show with me, he's like, they do like a comic book, and it's not kiddie stuff. Like, it's like, I was like, yeah, all right. And then what got me back was Last Ronin, and I read that, and I'm just like, this is phenomenal. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah, that was fun.
And it was I'm like, shit, like but I always grew up as a Star Wars guy, and I'm like, and ever since a particular company bought Star Wars, I have not enjoyed it as much. But so I was like, found something else.
We're on the
like,
same page then.
Yeah. So I was like, I'll just go back in the Turtles, and it's like an old, warm, comfy blanket. I was like, this is great. And then with this is the 40th anniversary of Turtles, I'm just like, I'm going full bore into Turtles. Like, I don't care. But real quick, so Max Flowers, we'll get Max's comments. So David Finch open critiques and portfolio reviews are a great example of higher ups helping out. And that's a great point, because that used to happen all the time. Like, I remember when I went and saw Jim Lee and J. Scott Campbell sitting at the same table, didn't have to pay for the autograph, mind you, back in the 90s. For every 4 or 5 people there just wanted an autograph, there were guys with their portfolios, and they would take the time and critique. And David Finch is awesome. I just met him for the first time at that same Comic-Con we were talking about earlier. I got a chance to just kind of say, hey, man, I've been a big fan of your work for a long time. Shook my hand, and he did such a sweet sketch on a turtle cover that I didn't know he did until I got there. And I'm just like, and he could not have been nicer.
That's awesome. I mean, and it's so cool meeting those people. And I think that's what got me into wanting to make comics, is I was such a big collector. I used to go to like San Diego and conventions to get sketches, to like meet creators, and to, Mark Bagley and like, Chris Burnham, all those dudes. I have great sketches from, even I'm spacing his name, Tony Daniel. I have a great Swamp Thing sketch I gotta show you guys sometime. I have a cool sketch. Batman, Kevin Eastman sketch, all sorts of stuff, dude. Like, and I think meeting those creators and talking to them and realizing how nice and like amazing they were. Grant Morrison, dude, I met Grant Morrison and Donnie Cates, and we just had conversations. Like, having a conversation with those guys was like the wildest experience of my life. But I was like, you're why I love comics. You're why I want to continue making comics. Like, I want to get to your level of creativity and making comics. Neil Gaiman, brilliant, lovely fucking human being. So sorry I cussed. But like another great person that will give you a word of advice to keep going. And I just love that so much.
No, and just like I said, the people who just take the time, because I've talked about going to cons before, and like I said, I love creators. I love artists. Not the most personable, not the best customer service, because I go to cons and I'm like, hey, I really dig your art. I would like to give you money. I just need you to be nice to me for like 5 seconds. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, I was like, but at the same time, people who aren't nice, like, hey man, like that stuff gets around. Like you can be uber talented,
it impacts me being your fan.
Yeah, but if you're a dick, I'm going to tell, you know what I'm going to tell? Everybody I met that, hey, that dude's a dick. So,
dude, honestly, yeah. There's a reason why I couldn't watch the first season of The Punisher for so long. It's because I met that dude that plays Micro, and I just couldn't stand him. He was the rudest guy I've ever met, and I just couldn't do it.
It sticks. Like, first impressions are a hell of a thing. That's why, when you go to a job interview, you do your best, but like certain times it's be like, those impressions, they stick with people for sure.
Yeah, hands down.
So, all right. So we've kept you up a while now. So, anything we want to hit before we get going, guys?
I would just mention again the Hyperforce Kickstarter. What's a good way to get to it verbally, Brandon?
Honestly, if you just head to Kickstarter.com and type in Hyperforce, it'll pop up. If you go to any of the Apollo Social on Instagram or whatever, it's right there. We are on the last, I don't know, we're very close to ending. I want to say, I'm not too sure which hour we're on at this point.
I think it ends at 11:59 tonight, is what I saw. So.
There you go. Okay,
so
so we're right on
your
the
last chance. So if you wait, if you see this stream tomorrow, it'll be too late. But
it's too late.
But
prices go up.
If you get late tonight.
Yeah, they're on the secondary. When I get mine, I'm totally charging 300% more. But we got
3 hours
Adam,
left.
We still got Adam watching. So 11:59. I'm gonna assume Eastern Standard for you guys.
Yeah.
So
3 hours left.
okay,
So,
so
we gotta make it happen. Yeah, we're hoping to get a couple more trickled in there at the last couple hours. I'm really hopeful for. But I'm just so happy with this campaign, and it blew me away. And Adam worked so hard on it, dude. I can't, when you work with creators like that who are just so driven and just so passionate, and they try to make it happen, they'll make it happen. And it's a long road making comics and developing a name and getting fans. And so, some people have it in them, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of understanding, but it's worth it every moment.
So if they do miss the campaign, do you have the website or link to where you guys can pick up copies later?
Yeah, it's going to be listed on the Lesser Known Comics website, where all of our books will be. We're actually revamping the website. I know you can place orders for some of our previous books there as well on lesserknowncomics.com. But we're going to be working on some really cool revamps on that site very soon that are being developed as we speak. And it'll be a lot easier to order our books and get a lot of cool stuff and get some cool bundles and everything too.
All right.
You said you have a Kickstarter coming out in April?
Yes, and I guess this is a great time to announce it right before we sign off. Meant to bring it up earlier, but we have timed up with Benjamin and Eric from B Comics. They had released a book called Outer Spaced. In fact, I have a promo from Outer Spaced right here. And what we have done is that we've joined forces. This is our first stoner sci-fi book. I'm so excited for it. And we're rebranding issue 1 for this campaign for the Apollo label, and we are releasing issue 2. And issue 2 is actually an homage to a great Animal Man cover. That's really exciting. But check out Outer Spaced. They do have an Instagram. You can check out Outer Spaced on Instagram. Hit them up. Ben and Eric are great people, and we're so happy to have them join the Apollo team. We are launching it April 16th. 10 a.m. And then on 420, you could catch us doing a very long live stream promoting the book. If you all want to hang out on Instagram, it's going to be definitely a very, very fun time. But I'm very excited for this next campaign and to be working with these dudes. They're great people. And we have a lot more coming this year. We have campaigns lined up the entire year. Soul Catchers is next with Kai Brown, who did the Shadow Anthology. You actually get a preview of Soul Catchers. Actually, if you have Shadow Anthology, or if you're going to purchase it later, you'll get a preview of Soul Catchers, which is coming out this year. Shadows, which is another Adam Matthew Smith publication. That's part of the Hyperforce universe and everything. And Teenage Babylon, me and China Rosemaria's story, also has a preview in there as well. I try to use these anthologies to do previews to my upcoming books. So Punk Anthology has like a prelude to Punk Anthology, and Shadow Anthology actually have a prelude to Teenage Babylon that is also coming out this year. So we have a lot of books on the slate and a lot of great creators that I can't wait to talk about more.
All right, so my fault. I didn't scroll far enough down. I gotta know, what is Nocturnal Rabbit Guy?
Oh man, that is a question for Adam Matthew Smith. That's part of the Hyperforce universe. Nocturnal Rabbit Guy he was a kid that was just like really greatly inspired by the characters in Hyperforce, and it's a great little fun bonus book that we have included here. I'm so excited that Adam even had this ready to include with it, because it's building the world, it's building this universe, and he's really put so much heart into it that from Shadows, that's going to be a bigger graphic later this year. And Hyperforce being the first issue of this, now you get this like preview of another aspect of that universe. It's really fun. I think everyone's going to enjoy it. It's like the worthwhile thing to do if you pledge. Like, you get the main book and you get this fun bonus story.
Yeah, it looks ridiculous, but in the best way. I'm
yes, right.
It looks
so much fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick that one up eventually later. But all right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a blast, and love to do it some other time. Love to have Adam on sometime. Just
yes,
it's a fun time, guys. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
All righty.
Super appreciate it.
Thanks, man. So, all right, I'm gonna kick you real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. So thanks so much, Brandon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. All right. So if you want to see what we're talking about on our Facebook or what we're going to be talking about on the show, you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram. If you have not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. It helps a lot. We're on all the major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and Google. And I got to change my graphic because we are streaming on X as well. So you can check us out on X, or otherwise known as Twitter. Other than that, Nate, you're showing off. So Nate, thanks so much for setting this up. Anything you got coming up soon, sir?
Austin and I are headed to Tucson this weekend for the Tucson Comic Art Terror. It's called TCAT.
Oh.
And then 2 weeks after that, David and I are going to Brandon's hometown of El Paso. I'm pretty sure that's where he's from. We're going to El Paso Comic-Con. It will be glorious and fun and full of hijinks. So David and I, it's our first show out of town together. So we'll see what we can get into.
Yeah, we had some crazy times up in here in Motor City Comic Con. I think we were in our jammies by about 8:30. So crazy times.
Oh, and then Free Comic Book Day is coming. So
yeah, golly,
we're
coming up.
I think we're gonna try to hit up 4 locations again this year, and I think that there should be a prize for the location that sells the most this year. It'd be like a title belt or something.
Heck yeah, man.
You guys won last year. I don't know if you remember that. But
we did last year, so my understanding, we dominated up here in Detroit. I'm just saying. So, whoop! Oh no! We need to wrap up the show. We're doing things. So, all right, Nate. Thanks so much, man, and we'll see you later.
Sounds good.
Thanks, man.